Hey, good morning, Jen.
Good morning.
I believe our topic today is survey. Are there any administrative matters, Councilor? And I assume that the witnesses will be coming up in the order that I have them here, which is Mr. Lipsitz first, then Mr. Raymond, and the advisory committee.
That is correct.
So now we can start with energy.
Thank you. Good morning.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Everyone identified themselves for the record.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. On behalf of Invenergy, Elizabeth Noonan, Mike Glazer, Nicole Birdie, Richard Beretta, and Alan Shore.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Mike McElroy for the town of Burrillville, and with me is Bill Dimitri, town solicitor.
Jerry Elmer for Conservation Law Foundation.
Andrew Marcaggio for the Office of Energy Resources. Here with me is Deputy Commissioner Nicholas Ucci.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'd like to call Richard Lipsitz, please. Good morning, Mr. Lipsitz.
Good morning.
Do you have in front of you a binder containing exhibits 49, 50, and 51?
I do.
Is exhibit 49 your curriculum vitae?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Thank you, Mr. Omer. And exhibit 50 is your pre-filed direct testimony?
Yes.
And exhibit 51 for Invenergy is your pre-filed rebuttal testimony, correct?
Correct.
I know it's been a while since this testimony was submitted. My question to you today is, do you have any changes to any of that testimony or your curriculum vitae?
I don't.
Mr. Lipsitz is now available for a question.
CLF has no questions for this witness.
OER has no questions.
I have a few, thank you. Morning, Mr. Lipsitz. My name is Mike McElroy. I'm the attorney for the town of Burrillville. Now, you're aware of the advisory opinion process that the town of Burrillville had to go through at the direction of this board, correct?
I am.
And during the advisory opinion process, your Class 1 boundary survey of the entire Algonquin property was submitted, correct?
Yes, it was.
But would you agree that it wasn't until July 11th, 2017 that a fully accurate meets and bounds description of the proposed new subdivided lot upon which the power plant would be located was provided for review?
I would not know.
And why do you believe that that's not the date on which the fully accurate meets and bounds description of the lot was submitted? When do you believe it was?
It was submitted in 2016 as part of the master plan submission to the town, at which point Mr. Kravitz deemed our application complete.
Were there changes in the meets and bounds survey between 2016 and July 11, 2017?
Yes, there were.
Is the July 11, 2017 meets and bounds survey the most recent one?
It is.
And that's the one that Invenergy would like to have approved, correct?
That's correct.
And the July 11, 2017 version of the survey was not available to the building inspector or the planning board or the zoning board at the time they issued their advisory opinions, correct?
there were prior versions with very minor differences available to them dating back to 2016.
Part of this process is that you're required to answer my questions. So listen carefully to my questions and please give me an answer. If you need to explain it after you get the answer, you're welcome to do that.
Thank you.
But during the advisory opinion process, the planning board, the zoning board, and the building inspector did not have before them the final July 11, 2017 survey, correct?
Correct.
Now, can I assume that in your experience as a professional land surveyor, you've had a number of occasions to participate in proceedings that seek subdivision of land?
Yes, I have.
This is something you do regularly, correct?
Yes.
And putting aside the idea of an administrative subdivision, you know what that is, right? Administrative. Putting that to one side, would you agree with me that it's required that the actual proposed lot be identified with specificity in a Class 1 survey prior to the town planner and the planning board considering the acceptability of a proposed lot?
I would not agree.
What would you not agree with?
That level of specificity is not required at the master plan stage, which is what we submitted to the town.
What about at the final approval stage?
Absolutely, it's required.
Thank you. And the reason for that is because they can't give a final approval to something without knowing specifically what they're approving, correct?
That would be one component, yes.
Now, I'm assuming that in designing the lot that was being subdivided out of the Big Algonquin lot, you took a look at the Burrillville planning and subdivision regulations, is that correct?
We did, along with the other members of the design teams.
Now, would you agree that the proposed lot upon which the power plant is proposed to be built has an irregular shape?
I would.
Would you agree with me that most cities and towns, including the town of Burrillville, discourage and in certain cases prohibit the creation of lots that have an irregular shape?
I would agree that some of the cities and towns have in their ordinances specific language as how to try to mitigate that, yes.
But would you agree with me that in Burrillville, they prohibit irregular shaped lots unless properly mitigated with the approval of the town?
I would not, no.
Would you agree with me that the town of Burrillville discourages the use of irregularly shaped lots?
They may, in this case they didn't, as we met with the staff prior to and while developing these plans.
Well, has the town of Burrillville given an approval for this irregularly shaped lot?
We sought no approvals from the town of Burrillville for this. We submitted for a master plan review, which was part of the process coming to this board.
But would you agree with me that absent the Energy Facility Siting Act, in order to create this irregularly shaped lot, waivers would need to be obtained from the Burrillville planning and subdivision regulations?
No, I wouldn't.
And why not?
There is, in your line of questioning now, there is no portion of the ordinance that describes that where some other towns that you mentioned might, that a lot can't have certain angles, certain distances, certain shapes.
But certainly, the town discourages such things, correct?
I will take your word for that. I look at the maps of the surrounding area, and just about every lot here, other than new subdivisions, have jigsaw, to use your words, shaped parcels.
Well, I don't think I used the word jigsaw, I said
It's in-
irregularly.
I'm sorry, it's in the rebuttal testimony, or testimony, Mr. Raymond.
Well, I'm not Mr. Raymond, you know that. Now, with regard to the wetlands that exist on the subject property, would you agree that the wetlands delineation has still not been fully completed?
It's not my area of work on this project. It's another firm has done the wetlands delineations and the dealings with the DEM.
Do you show the wetlands on your survey?
We do not.
Now, you're familiar with what the A80 aquifer overlay zone is, correct?
I am.
And you looked at it with regard to this property, correct?
We did.
And certainly I'm sure you would agree that part of the larger parcel is within the A80 aquifer overlay zone, correct?
That's correct. It was stated on our initial survey of the entire Algonquin Park.
Now, would you agree with me that the purpose of the A80 aquifer overlay zone is to protect the underground water aquifers?
I would assume so.
Would you agree with me that the protection of underground water aquifers is very important, especially in a community like Burrillville that relies on wells?
I would agree.
And I assume you reviewed the town's ordinances and regulations regarding the A80 underground water aquifer, correct?
That's not my area of participation in this project.
Well, are you aware that certain uses on the land above an underground water aquifer are prohibited?
Your Honor, Madam Chair, I would object to this line of questioning. We have a planning expert coming later. This is just a registered land surveyor.
Well, if he knows. My question was, are you aware?
Yeah.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Please.
Are you aware that in order to protect the underground aquifer, the ordinances in Burrillville prohibit certain uses of the land above the aquifer?
I'm aware that there are ordinances in Burrillville pertaining to the aquifer, and there are a multitude of things that they cover. I am not aware of any specific portion of that ordinance.
Are you aware enough of the ordinance to know that if this proposed lot was in fact in the A80 aquifer overlay, you would not be able to build a power plant on that lot?
I'm not aware of that.
Any reason to doubt that?
I would never doubt an attorney that tells me so.
I don't know if that's true.
Now, you will agree with me, I'm sure, that Mr. Raymond, who is the zoning official for the town of Burrillville, has expressed doubts about whether or not the proposed lot falls outside or inside the A80 aquifer overlay, correct?
Yes, I read his information.
And would you agree with me that the ordinances and regulations in Burrillville put the burden on the applicant to prove that a proposed parcel is not in the A80 aquifer overlay zone?
I would not agree.
And why not?
To put the A80 line on our plans, we use the town maps to put that line on our plans. We agree with the town maps, we use the town maps, and they're accurately represented on our plans.
Okay, you're going to have to listen once again to my question. And my question was very specific. My question is, who has the burden of demonstrating that a lot that is being proposed is not within the A80 overlay aquifer?
I don't know the answer to that question.
All right, so if you have you not read section 30-202 aquifer zoning of the Burrillville zoning regulations?
I have not.
Have you ever read or are you familiar with the language that says that where the bounds of the aquifer zones are in doubt or in dispute, as delineated by the overlay map, the burden of proof and all associated expenses shall be borne by the owners of the land in question to show where said aquifer zones are properly located? You've never heard that language?
I've heard it now. I don't think
Before today you never did?
I have not.
Are you aware that before this board, by law, which is the Energy Facility Siting Act, the applicant has the burden of proof on all matters?
Yes.
Now, you stated in your testimony that in your opinion, the subject parcel is not within the A80 aquifer zone, correct?
As shown on the 2017 plan, yes.
And what you did in order to make that determination, as far as I can tell from your testimony, is you reviewed what is shown on the town of Burrillville's Geographic Information System, also known as GIS, correct?
Yes.
And would you agree with me that you've never made an independent on-site inquiry, and when I say you, I mean you or Inventia, to determine whether the subject parcel in fact lies over the aquifer through a hydrogeologic analysis?
I can only speak for myself, and the answer is no.
So the only thing that you've relied on so far is the GIS to make that determination?
The town map is correct.
Do you agree with me that the GIS is not always 100% accurate?
I would agree that the GIS is what it is. Accurate to what standard? You'd have to tell me what standard you're asking.
I can do that. Would you agree with me that the GIS is not accurate to the standard of a Class 1 survey?
On boundary lines, absolutely.
That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Good morning, Mr. Lipset. On the survey, the lot lines are clear. Are aquifer lines static or do they change?
You're asking something that's beyond my level of expertise.
So when you're doing, I guess I'm following up on that. So when you're looking at an aquifer zone, and you need to know where that is or whether you're in 25 feet of it, just maybe state again for me how you determine that.
We determine it by using the town maps. We agree that the town maps are correct. We use the town maps to show that line just as we would flood zone lines from FEMA or other lines on the survey plan that are not boundary lines that we can survey to monument and measure.
And when you're looking at whether or not something's within 25 feet of something, are you putting in any kind of cautionary surplus, or are you doing it down to the foot line?
We are using the maps that we were able to obtain from the town and accurately representing them on our survey plan.
Okay, thanks.
To redirect.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Lipsitz, in regards to this administrative subdivision, when did you first prepare an administrative subdivision plan?
Early in 2016.
And since that time, were there changes made to that plan?
Yes, there were.
What were those changes?
There were minor changes to the configuration of where the frontage and the proposed entrance road would go out to Wallen Lake Road, and there were minor changes to the boundary and area of the 880 zone. After the folks designing the plant were able to reconfigure the plant, move away from that, we revised the boundaries to be out of that zone.
And when the town's planning and zoning boards heard this matter in an advisory capacity, did they have your administrative plan?
They had the plans prior to the 2017 drawing. It was submitted in 2017 by your office, yes.
In terms of the 880 line, are you confident that, according to the town's GIS and the process that you described to Director Foyt, that the proposed 67 acres is not in the 880 zone?
Yes, I am.
In terms of administrative subdivisions, in this instance, it's a rearrangement of lot lines, correct?
Yes, it is.
And can you explain in this particular plan how many lots you're reconfiguring?
The 550 odd acre initial parcel that we started with from Inspector Algonquin was 8 lots. We have reconfigured that in its final form, the 2017 plan, into 3 lots. One for Invenergy, one that basically is the compressor station and the infrastructure for the gas company. The rest is the remaining land about now.
And based upon your experience, is it normal practice that such an administrative, based on your experience, such an administrative subdivision, when would that approval be rendered in a normal development?
At final approval.
And at this point, the hearings before the town, was it at that stage?
No, we were at master plan, we hadn't even gotten to preliminary or final.
And did you discuss with the town planner the sequence of this administrative subdivision approval?
Yes, I did.
And that's set forth in your testimony, rebuttal testimony, I believe, Exhibit 51, correct?
Yes.
That would be page 3. Sorry, that page 2 at line 7 of Exhibit 51. Oh, it starts,
That's correct.
it was determined that the administrative subdivision was the correct procedure as confirmed by Ray Goff, the current planner, in his memo dated 8/10/2017.
Yes.
Correct. I have no further reading.
Anything further, Mrs. Stewart?
I have nothing else, thank you.
Thank you very much.